Hey guys, I'm second class Noah Yraola, and welcome to my 8th to Nav. So for my 8th to Nav, we're going to be looking through James 1 verses 2 to 5. So I'll read that for you guys real quick. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. So, we were reading this in our company Bible study, and it just really hit me because when you think about it, how do we find joy when there's just so much heartache and suffering in the world? Like, what could possibly be joyful in those hard times? And how we're going to break it down is, one, how we're going to find that joy. So, looking at joy, we have two different types of joy. We have worldly joy and spiritual joy. Worldly joy comes and goes. It's not permanent. You might be happy for a second, next thing you're not. You're thinking about all the worries bringing up in your life. The next thing we have is spiritual joy, and this comes from the eternal source, which is our Father. And that joy is always present. So what it comes down to finding this joy in our difficult times is receiving it. How do we receive that joy when it's always there? And that comes to our focus. We're asking ourselves, are we looking to the suffering in front of us, or are we looking to Jesus Christ and what he's offered us? And another question is, how confident are we in our salvation and that nothing can take that salvation away from us? So this brings me to John chapter 10, verse 29. Jesus says, my Father, who has given them to me, everyone here, all the believers, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. So when you're in the middle of that trial, are we thinking about our salvation and how confident are we in it? Because our trial and our suffering is only as temporary as it is, but if we look very far ahead into the future that God has prepared for us, we're secure there. We're all perfect there. And this is a perfect segue into the purpose of these trials and tribulations. So, like it says here in James 1, verse 3 says, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. So, first of all, this is a test of our faith. All these things that God's working in our life is to always bring us closer to him. And that's pretty much what it means to make that endurance. We can think about it like working a muscle. The very first few times it's very difficult, but the more we practice doing it, the easier it gets. And this is the same thing with us bringing our problems and our worries to God. It teaches us how to rely on the Father's grace and joy to keep that eternal perspective in our hearts. With that endurance, the very end of that endurance is being perfect, being complete, and being with him. So we can just think about this as our sanctification. Yes, we come to Christ, but that doesn't make our lives any easier. Honestly, it gets a lot harder because we're just so much more mindful of the things in our lives. And yes, we can get caught up in our sorrows, but at the very end, we're complete, perfect with him without no more tears, no more pain, no more worries, no more sorrows. None of that. And that's just so awesome to see. So as a little summary, what these trials are teaching us is to lean in even more on the Father. Even when it gets even harder, we look more to him and to the Word and to what Jesus has done for us. We are always reminded of who he is when we choose to lean in on him and the plans he has for us. So I want to take us to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16 to 18. A very encouraging chapter or section that I always look to. And it says here, therefore we do not lose heart, but though our outer man is decaying, yet our inner man is being renewed day by day. So we're always falling apart every day because this is the world sin has brought, that we're just gonna eventually die. But our inner man, the spirit that God's given us, is learning more about him every single day, and it's being renewed with a new mind and moving on to verse 17. For momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison. While we look not at the things which are seen, but to the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. And Paul is telling us right here to have that eternal perspective. The things we see right now are temporal, but God is working for us an eternal weight of glory. He makes that comparison, twice that contrast, for saying our affliction is momentary and light. And we can literally think about that affliction as our entire life. Because compared to the weight of glory that God's created for us is magnitudes better than our minuscule life that we have right here. So, bring this back to James, can see that it is working our faith to create this strong endurance, and we just need to change our eternal perspective, seeking the Word, seeking the receiving of His Holy Spirit to change our eyes and our hearts to look more to Him. And we can be clouded by that. But looking at verse 5, if any of us lacks wisdom, we can ask God because He gives generously. And it's so awesome to see that we can trust Him knowing that He has great plans for us and that He is working for our good. It literally says right here in the cover of my Bible, Jeremiah 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So God is working for our good. So we can trust Him in these very tough times of whatever they may be. Some family member is suffering through sickness. Maybe a loved one's passed away. Or it can be something as simple as schoolwork. I'm struggling through my engineering classes right now, and I just feel hopeless because I feel like I'm failing some classes at this point. But I know that's not what's defining me, because I know I have something so much greater at the end than what I see right now. Anyways, thank you guys for listening to my Aids to Nav, and have a blessed day.